Hey, this is Perry O'Duff coming at you live from Hustle's Corner, New York City, saying thank you once again for joining us. In this part 3 of our episode of our series with Jeffery Deskovich, we talk about his coping with life behind bars and how tough it really was for him. We talk about dealing with depression. We talk about the suicidal thoughts he had when he was behind bars. We talk about the settlement after settlement after settlement that he won when he finally got out of prison. And we talk about him finally passing the bar and becoming an attorney. And most of all, we talk about his founding of the Jeffery Deskovich Foundation. So stay with us, join us. Thank you for being here with us. And as always, please help us grow by hitting that like button, sharing. Don't forget to leave a comment. And most of all, subscribe. Thank you and enjoy the show. Wow.
Okay, so after they found the real person that did the killing, did they release you? How long did you still have to serve?
Well, I mean, they called my lawyer and told my lawyer the results. And then my lawyer came to see me right away and she said, "You're going home tomorrow."
Oh.
So I was released from prison the next day. And then I got called, that was September 20th, 2006. And then they called me back to court 6 weeks later. And that's when they dismissed the charges on actual innocence grounds.
And let me guess, after that, you filed a civil suit against them and went after them with all claws prepared. Am I correct?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
That's good.
Yeah. So, I filed a lawsuit in New York State seeking compensation. And I also filed what's called a 1983, a federal civil rights lawsuit. And I didn't let anybody escape. So I sued the Westchester County because it was their medical examiner who committed the fraud. And then it took 5 years. So after 5 years, I settled with New York State. And then the first one that settled after that was Westchester County. That case was based on the fraud by the medical examiner. It was a special deposition, and my lawyer came there with our expert, and he was there with his lawyer, and he was supposed to show our expert that what he claimed he saw on the slides to base his finding on, where that was. And that's when he admitted what he said he saw on the slides didn't actually exist. So they settled with me. I sued Westchester Legal Aid for deficient representation. They settled with me also. I sued Peekskill because their officers participated in coercing the confession out of me, but also there was 17 witnesses that they interviewed after the DNA didn't match me, and all the witnesses told the police that there was no consensual sex and she didn't have any boyfriend, but the police purposely did not document any of those interviews, so we never learned about that. So that they settled with me. And I went to trial against the polygraphist, and I won a jury verdict against him.
So you went right on down the line, one after the other, like domino.
Wow, that's
fantastic.
Yes.
But, I mean, during all that time, I can only imagine how you must have felt being behind bars all that time.
Yeah, I met a lot of prisoners there who would say, I did what I did, I got caught, this is my punishment, so I'm going to just make the best of it and, just try to go home as quick as I can. But I could never get to that place because I knew that I didn't do anything, I didn't belong there. So I had to fight off feelings of hopelessness, helplessness, thoughts of giving up. Sometimes I thought about suicide. So it was a mental battle, not just a physical. And it was dangerous also. You know, I was there for rape along with a murder, and I'm 17 years old. I'm in a men's maximum security prison, so it was very, very dangerous for me also. I look back on it, you know, I think that, you know, I could say I survived, you know, my belief in God was something. The second thing was I used to collect articles about other people who had been exonerated. I used that as motivation to keep going. I used to learn the law to try to feel empowered, and I didn't trust a lawyer to defend me anymore. So I wanted to be able to send ideas and things. So I learned the law. I found things to throw myself into. I used to play sports a lot, and I'd engage in an elaborate delusion like I was a professional player and so was everyone else. But it wasn't like a kid playing on the playground. I mean, I needed to escape the prison for a couple hours mentally. So I played those gymnastics with myself. And, you know, I used to read 3 or 4 nonfiction books a week as well. So I kept myself busy in addition to writing a ton of letters. So all those things were factors.
Now, let me ask you, did you become a paralegal? Did you learn?
Yes, I learned. Yes, I became a paralegal. I mean, yeah, I mean, not in a formal sense. I mean, like I didn't do a correspondence class and get a certification from Blackstone's like some people have, but I did in the aspect, I did it in an informal sense that I started out knowing nothing, and I used to go to the law library and I learned the law. I learned how to research, and I learned the areas of the law that pertain to my case. And, you know, I gave out some tips here and there to other people, but for the most part, I focused on my own case. So I did become a paralegal in that sense of it.
I can't tell you how many times we have interviewed people that have done the exact same thing that you have, but it took them to get behind bars, ended up behind bars, for them to take the law seriously and to start to learn about it. And, you know, to learn not only how these pitfalls await people like you when you're young, but how we can prevent others and show them, hey, look, if you want to do this, this is what's waiting for you over here. And you're going to find yourself in a situation you can't get out of. Now, let me ask you this. Did you meet other people while you were behind bars that were also there for crimes they didn't commit?
Yeah, there were. So there's been a total of 18 people who were exonerated either before me or after me that I did time with. So only in 3 cases was I aware of the fact that they were innocent. The rest of the time we didn't speak about it. But one person that I did know was innocent, Frank Sterling. We used to get together once every 6 weeks for about 13 and a half years. And our conversation always had maybe like 2 topics that we used to talk about. We used to try to keep each other going morale-wise. And the second thing was we would brainstorm about, you know, what was the next move to make? What was the next letter to write? And, you know, what was the next tactic? What was the next thing in mind to try to prove our innocence and get out of there? Frank was ultimately exonerated a couple of years after me.
I want to continue with you as far as what happened when you finally were exonerated, and from there, how you went into the legal profession and started to work your way up to becoming an attorney.
So let me say that, you know, it between the point I was released and when I was compensated, it took about 5 years. So I was released with nothing, you know, so it was a very difficult existence. You know, I was never able to obtain gainful employment. You know, I nearly ended up into a homeless shelter. I was a couple of weeks away from that. Thank God, Mercy College, which gave me a scholarship to finish the bachelor's degree. I was 10 classes short of that. At the time, the funding was cut for college education for prisoners. So they gave me a scholarship, and then they allowed me to live on their campus to finish the 10 classes. So that's how I avoided the homeless shelter. Technology was different when I was released, so we didn't have cell phones, GPS, the internet. These things all did not exist. It was particularly hard for me because, you know, I had never lived on my own. I never had to, you know, go shopping or pay bills or, you know, write checks. So I had to learn all of that. I didn't have a driver's license before, so I had to learn to do all of that. There was the stigma around me, and you know, the actual criminal was arrested and caught, so it wasn't a thing about my guilt, innocence, but it was, well, how much you were in prison for 16 years wrongfully, but you were there for 16 years. How much of that rubbed off on you? You know, is it safe to, be alone someplace with you. So it was very difficult when it came to personal relationships. I used to see a mental health professional. I used to go 4 times a week. So I did that for about 6 years and dealing with the after effects of my experience and trying to readjust to. Now, at the same time, I was doing advocacy work. So I became a columnist for a weekly newspaper. So I wrote a lot of articles once a week, and I was doing presentations, and I was meeting regularly with elected officials, and I was trading privacy for awareness by doing media interviews. So I did that for about 5 years, and I was able to get some compensation. After I graduated Mercy College, I got the master's degree from John Jay College, which included a thesis on wrongful conviction cause and reform. So I wanted to add further formal education as a tool in my advocacy work. When I did get compensated, I decided to start the Jeffery Deskovich Foundation for Justice, whose purpose is to free people who are wrongfully imprisoned. So we've been able to get 7 people home in 6 years, and we've been able to pass 3 laws aimed at preventing wrongful conviction. My foundation and we joined a bigger coalition called It Can Happen to You, and we passed a few more laws as well, including the discovery law and an oversight board for the prosecutors. But at some point, I got tired of having to just sit in the front row in the courtroom. So I decided that I would go to law school and I would become an attorney so that I could represent some of the clients. So this past May, I graduated law school, the Elizabeth Haub School of Law at Pace University. I passed the bar, and recently I just got the results back from the last test on New York law, so I passed that. So I just have to do 2 minor steps and I'll be admitted to the bar.
All right, congratulations.
Yeah, so that I do believe in restorative justice, which is the theory of that's to try to restore people back to the position where they were, before they were injured. So I was asked to join the Global Advisory Council, Restorative Justice International. So I'm their in-house expert on wrongful conviction. And basically, this is my life now. I do a lot of advocacy work and, just day in and day out. And it's very meaningful. I find it healing and cathartic. I do think that this is my purpose in the world. And the vehicle that allows me to not be angry is I take that energy and I channel it into my advocacy work.
Is there at any time that you feel, when you came out of prison to where you've gotten to now, when you said you came out of prison, you had to adjust to the life on your own. When you came out, what did you do? Where did you go? Did you feel that people, friends, family that were at any time throwing you under the bus?
Well, I felt that I couldn't communicate with them, because I knew that nothing in their background really would allow them to understand what I had been through, to be arrested for something, to go on trial, to be wrongfully convicted, to do time in prison, to try to reintegrate. So I had a hard time reconnecting with anybody. I spent my first couple of days my aunt's house in Rockland County, but she was living in upstate New York, so she had like 2 homes, and so she moved. I had to leave there. I stayed a few days with my mother, who lived in Cobleskill, the same town as her, but it really was very rural up there. Bus service was door to door, so I realized that there's really no chance for me to rebuild my life there. So somebody sent me a $100 ticket to take a train to come back to Peekskill. And so I packed a little bit up that I had, and I went down there. My plan was to go from place to place until I could have some stability. I met a lot of people, and I did bump into members of extended family, and they all used to tell me, if you ever need anything, call me, and they gave me their number. But when I lost the temporary housing, so there was a religious community that they had like a community apartment, which they allowed me to stay at. But then after about 4 months, I lost that. And so I contacted everybody that had offered me, told me if I ever needed anything. And it all turned into a lot of hot air. It really did. And thank God the college stepped up. They gave me the scholarship. Otherwise, I would have been in the homeless shelter. So, in that aspect of it, I felt like it was a throwing under the bus for sure.
I can't tell.
And the worst is always the family.
Deja vu. I can't tell you how many times we have heard stories like this. And it was to a point whereas we had to rethink the Hustlers Corner, New York City. Based on that alone, we had to rethink everything because it took me a while to understand that, you know, we all want to help others and we want to help people do better, but it's hard to help the people when they themselves are throwing you under the bus.
Right.
You know, and so
Yes.
the question was, how do we address these situations like wrongful conviction and what you've been through? How do we reach out and help those when the people themselves don't even want to be helped? And that's where people like your stories come in. The key is people like you who have already been through it and have come out on top and succeeded. So the question is, how did you overcome it and succeed? And listening to your story, I'm telling you, bro, your story puts me on fire. It is so inspirational. I have to admit, I'm so impressed.
Yeah.
And to see that you to overcome it, and not only overcome it, but to beat the mental and spiritual onslaught you had to face to do it. That's monumental. Because I have to admit, I was facing that mental onslaught. You know, it's one thing to put the Hustlers Corner together. It's another thing to cater to an audience that really couldn't care less either way. So I was like, man, how do I figure this out? And it's stories like yours, which is the answer.
This concludes this session of the Hustlers Corner, New York City. If you are a person that's incarcerated and you have books that you'd like to get out and you want to share your story, come share your story on the Hustlers Corner, New York City Tales from the Pit series. If you are a person who has been wrongfully convicted of a crime that you did not commit and you want to share your story, come share your story on the Hustlers Corner, New York City Victims of the System series. If you are a person who has been self-reformed, active in the community, came out of a past nefarious life to a more positive one, and you want to share your story, come share your story on the Hustlers Corner, New York City Legends of the Hood series. If you are a Black business owner and you want to share your story of how you got your business off the ground and how you faced many challenges to succeed, come share your story on the Hustlers Corner, New York City Black Business Movement series. If you are a musician or an artist or a vocalist or a rapper, hip hop artist, and you want to share your story about your career and how you have grown it into success, come share your story on the Hustlers Corner, New York City On the Grind series. And if you are a woman who has been through traumatic times in her life only to overcome them, come share your story on the Hustlers Corner, New York City Lipstick Stories series. And if you're enjoying this show, please help us grow. Show your love. Like, share, leave a comment, and most of all, subscribe. Thank you for joining us. Looking forward to seeing you again. This is Perry L. Duff from the Hustlers Corner, New York City.